Hey guys, welcome into the Stinkin Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside Mike Evans. Hope you had a great weekend of football. Finishes up tonight, Monday Night Football. I think we have 2 games tonight. Really looking forward to watching the Chargers and the Raiders get it on because I think both of them are pretty good football teams. Mike, how are you, buddy? How was your weekend?
I'm great. A great weekend of football, but man, feels so bad for Joe Burrow. Yet another injury for Joe Burrow, and this one going to keep him out about 3 months.
Yeah.
Killer.
Surgery on the toe. And I have said this till I'm blue in the face. The way you construct a football team and where you spend your money. And the fact that you consistently play a style of football which exposes your quarterback to big hits, that guy gets run. I mean, he just gets run over on a consistent basis. And the fact that you don't protect him from day one, that you're spending your money on tight ends and wide receivers and all of this stuff, and you consistently haven't been able to put a team around him that can dominate line of scrimmage. And these are the things that happen. And I said this on this particular podcast probably when you and I were talking 3 months ago, that they are wasting Joe Burrow. They sit in shotgun and they make Joe Burrow play from the gun, consistently with this football team. They expose him on a consistent basis. They can't protect him. They don't consistently run the ball. They don't get under center enough. They don't take the pressure off of him. He plays on the high dive 24/7. He's constantly up there. He's constantly in charge of everything. And these are the results of that. In my opinion, you don't dominate the line of scrimmage. We saw it here in Denver yesterday as we were watching the Indianapolis Colts beat the Denver Broncos. That offensive line ahead of Daniel Jones, they did such a good job of dominating that the Broncos couldn't get any consistent pressure. They couldn't stop the run. That's how you win football games. That's what Indianapolis did yesterday, and that's what Cincinnati hasn't done in years.
So let's take a look at the bigger picture now for Cincinnati. They do have 2 wins banked already, which is helpful. And you're talking about 3 months, so you're talking, that window between maybe Thanksgiving and Christmas with Joe Burrow maybe coming back by then. Jake Browning, Brett Rippon, they're your quarterbacks right now. Can they, kind of tread water, hang in there until Joe comes back?
It'll be interesting to see because Browning, when he has had the opportunity, Browning has been really good, and he's orchestrated that offense. It'll be interesting for me to see, do you take Browning as your quarterback, and do you implement an offense that puts less stress on him, where he doesn't have to carry the burden of that offense as often as Joe Burrow does? And that'll be interesting. And, part of that is, hey, man, how do we run the ball? How do we take some pressure off of him? How do we give him breather plays? How do we do these things? The things that you don't do for Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow is highly paid and he's an exceptional quarterback. Even though I think you don't do it. Will you do it for Browning? That'll be an interesting conversation to have because ultimately, and I said this last year, defensively, You put so much out there on the offensive side of the ball that your defense never gets a rest. If you became more balanced, Mike, you ran the ball, you got under center more, you ran multiple backs more, multiple tight end packages, right? You controlled the tempo in the line of scrimmage, you ate up the clock, and you controlled possession. What would that do for your defense? And would that make you overall a better football team? I don't say you get better at the quarterback position, obviously, when Browning replaces Joe Burrow, but could you become a better football team because ultimately you have to become more balanced because what you're going to do is say, let's take some stress off our backup quarterback that you're not willing to take off of Joe Burrow's shoulders.
Super Bowl rematch, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and I don't think we necessarily learned anything new about Philadelphia. They're good.
Yeah.
Okay? They're legit. But what did we learn about Kansas City with their inability to be able to measure up again against Philadelphia, this time at home? What are we learning about the Chiefs?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Chiefs, they've got injuries. Rashee Rice is out with the suspension, right? Xavier Worthy is out with the injury. That's not going to happen anytime soon. They've never really been interested in running the ball under Andy Reid. And you go back to their Super Bowl losses to Tampa Bay and to Philadelphia. Philadelphia had 45 carries. I think Tampa Bay had 33 or 34 carries, and they had like 17 and 11. Now, they had more carries than I would have expected them to have. Mahomes had, I think, 7 rushing attempts. Pacheco had like 10. I think I think they tried to run the ball, but they're just, again, if that's not what you do, like if you're not versed in that, because that is a skill, moving a man from point A to point B against his will is a skill. And if it's one of those things where all of a sudden you decide, hey, you know what, today we got to take some pressure off our offensive line from a pass rushing standpoint. So today, let's run the ball. Even though we haven't done that, to me, it's an insult to football. It's an insult to the way the game is played when all of a sudden you say, I know we don't do this, but now we're gonna lean into it. It's not how it works, man. You have got to be committed to that identity, and you haven't been. And so, that's something they can't lean on or hang their hat on.
We spent all summer talking about the idea, is the window closing for the Chiefs, or is that gap in the AFC West between the Chiefs and the Chargers, the Chiefs and the Broncos, the Chiefs and the Raiders? Is it closing at all? Have you seen enough in these first 2 weeks to say, yes, they are vulnerable?
Well, sure.
Or too early?
Yeah, no, I think they're vulnerable, but when they get their players back, what will it look like, right? When Rashee Rice comes back, what will it look like? When Xavier Worthy is healthy, what will that look like? But as of right now, yeah, they're vulnerable. And you know what? I mean, they're sitting at 0-2 right now, and they lost 2 games all of last season. So, and it's the big bad Chiefs, and I understand what they've been able to accomplish, but there is an interesting kind of psychological advantage you have when all of a sudden you see a team not performing well, a team that has been great. You see them as, hey, man, they're questioning right now. They're not getting these things done. They're not making the big plays. Travis Kelce's botching a ball on the goal line that could have been a touchdown. He's dropping a ball. Like, you start to see these things and say, hey, man, they're vulnerable. Let's get them while they're down. And that can snowball. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how they respond to this 0-2 start. But just as a public service announcement to all NFL fans, the Chiefs are still in last place, which is awesome. That is incredible.
I know what you're doing. And this weekend was awesome from a spectator fan standpoint. Yeah. A lot of great stuff to watch, including you on Twitter and your continuing battle with Chiefs Kingdom. Something about Vaseline this weekend?
Yeah.
What's the latest there? You and the Chiefs. What's the beef?
So was that a regular season game where we got called for having Vaseline and just was it it wasn't a playoff game. I think it was
regular season.
I think it was a regular season game. Maybe Bubby Brister where we beat your ass with our backup quarterback. Because they had just signed Michael Dean Perry, and Michael Dean Perry said they're using Vaseline or something. So, by the way, none of us got fined. So the league, they wiped down our arms. I will guarantee you on cold weather games, everybody, or not everybody, but all kinds of players have Vaseline on their faces, on their arms. If they go sleeveless, it's just a barrier against the cold. Now, one of the other things that you have to understand for me is I kick Vaseline on my armpits every game.
Why?
Because your jerseys are so freaking tight. So we built these plastic things over the back of our jerseys because defensive linemen like to grab. There's a pad that comes down right here, and there's a hole right here. And it's a great place to grab as you go swim move or whatever, right? Or defensive holding on, try not to let you get through to the second level. So we would build these plastic pads that would connect the shoulder pad there so there's no gripping place. And then we two-way carpet tape our pads down to our jerseys down to our pads. And so there's nothing really to grab. The other thing is the jersey is so freaking tight, and I was going to bring it in, but it's all packed right now. The jersey's so freaking tight that it rips up your armpits. So if you looked at my armpits during the season, I just had like cuts and scabs in my armpits. So I would cake Vaseline on my jersey and in my armpits, and pretty much we all did it because it ripped up your arms because the jerseys are so tight. So here's the bottom line. Did I have Vaseline on my arms? Yes. Did the refs come over and wipe off the Vaseline? Yes. Did any of us get fined? No. Did we whip your ass with our backup quarterback? Yes. If you're going to cry about Vaseline, you guys are cheaters, you use Vaseline. Grow up, Kansas City. Grow up. We whipped your ass. That's the way it was back then. Hey, listen, you've been on a great run. Congratulations. It's over.
Oh, calling a shot. It's over. All right, yeah. So you're not going to apologize to Chiefs fans. Fine, I get it. Ladies and gentlemen, I think Mark Schlereth owes Russell Wilson an apology. Right. Russ was dealing. That was vintage
right
Russ.
Up until the point he wasn't dealing, right? Well, right up until the point, the last play of the game where he gets a little pressure. You know, the one time you should escape out of the back of the pocket and you decide to stand in there. Like, I'm going to stand in here and rip it down the middle of the football field when my wide receivers running a corner route. I'm going to throw the post. Hey, listen, man, tip of the cap to Russ. He was actually awesome. Now, some of that was the Cowboys busting coverage after coverage, and Diggs looked awful. I mean, he looked awful. And I know he tore his ACL last year, right? And he's coming back from that, and he's not 100%. But, boy, they looked bad. A lot of busted coverages. But, listen, you get a busted coverage like that if you're Dallas, the quarterback still has to take advantage of it. And he took advantage of it. And that moon ball, one thing he's always been able to throw is that deep ball on target. Man, he was he was cutting them up on the deep ball, and he looked the part, man. So congratulations. That was awesome. That last play notwithstanding, that was, the big issue, that ended up costing that. But they still kicked a 64-yard field goal. He did everything you could do to win that football game. So I'll recognize when he plays great like that. I was sitting there watching the game yesterday, Mike, and I was thinking about, remember the movie Old School? When Frank the Tank goes to debate against the bald guy, whatever that political pundit is.
James Carville.
Yeah, James Carville. And he just has this out-of-body experience, and he's just that was like, I thought he was Frank the Tank and had an out-of-body experience going on in that game against Dallas.
Hey, by the way.
But I will not apologize, by the way.
No apologies yet.
No
okay,
apologies.
Fine. By the way, Cowboys, hey, you gave up 450 yards passing, but you only allowed 84 yards rushing.
There you go.
So, again, that Micah Parsons deal, paying off.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
You stop the run.
Stop the run.
Got to stop the run.
It was Micah Parsons. That's the reason we couldn't stop the run. You can't rush the passer.
Right.
But you could stop the run. So, by the way, how about the guy, what's the kid's name? Hudson, that had the blow up, the offensive tackle, the left tackle, that just had 4 or 5 penalties in one drive, offsides, holding calls, personal fouls. I mean, that was an unbelievable and then he's melting down on the sideline. And to be able to switch him out and still do what they did, the Giants, unbelievable job by the Giants. That was a crazy game. Just crazy.
I know it was only one game, and it was against the Saints. But did Mac Jones play for the 49ers in a way that, hey, maybe those rumors about Kyle Shanahan wanting to draft Mac Jones out of Alabama 3rd overall, and instead they took Trey Lance, that, maybe there's something to that, and maybe there's something to the idea that if Mac Jones had gone to San Francisco, are we looking at a different Mac Jones, a different situation? Are we even talking about Brock Purdy?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And so right now, you look at just the quarterback rehab station that is Kyle Shanahan, and the 49ers because that's what Sam Darnold did. He went there, got an opportunity to play at the end of the season, but really kind of, went back to quarterback school, if you will. And we see what Sam Darnold is doing now. Minnesota last year, now with Seattle this year, getting a win in Pittsburgh on the road yesterday. So big-time performance by him. Then Mac Jones was really good yesterday. Now it's the Saints, and you won a game 26-21, but Mac Jones played exceptionally well within that game. He operated that offense, and there was all kinds and I don't know that anybody was quite sure because there was a lot of talk about, is it Mac Jones? Is it Trey Lance? They ended up going with Trey Lance. Didn't work out. So it is interesting to think about how things could have been if Kyle really did want Mac. I don't know if he wanted Trey Lance or if he wanted Mac Jones. I don't know, but there seemed to be a divide within the organization. Those were the reports during the course of that time frame. And it was split between those guys, and they went with Trey Lance and the athleticism of Trey Lance, and it's really interesting to see how it's come full circle now.
All right. Tell me if I'm just guilty of trying to be a hot take, shock jock guy here, okay? But had Mac Jones gone to San Francisco all those years ago, Mac Jones right now would be Brock Purdy.
He'd have that contract.
Is that preposterous or is that legit?
I thought Mac Jones, his rookie year in New England under Josh McDaniels, was really good. I'm not saying he was great, but he was really good.
Went to the playoffs?
Went to the playoffs and ended up being a Pro Bowler, I think. I mean, probably fifth alternate or however that works nowadays.
He got there.
But, talking to Josh McDaniels, because I did a game his rookie year, like his insatiable appetite for information, his ability to get them out of bad plays, like all the things that you want out of your quarterback. Hey, get us out of bad plays. Make sure you don't throw it into harm's way. Make sure that we're in the, he could do it all. And then all of a sudden, year two, McDaniels leaves to coach the Raiders, and all of a sudden we've got the brilliant idea of Joe Judge and Matt Patricia being co-offensive coordinators.
Bill,
and
what are you doing, Bill?
Right, and the kid just falls apart. And then where was he last year? Jacksonville last year. I don't know if he went somewhere between that, but this is what Kyle Shanahan does. He grabs these quarterbacks, gives them an opportunity to kind of wipe the slate clean and relearn, a progression style offense that's going to support you with a run game, that's going to support you with a play action game. And he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal in that game. And this is a 49ers team that didn't have Kittle, that's had injury issues, that doesn't have Ayuk, that doesn't have some of their wide receiving core. So pretty big time performance. And right now the Niners are sitting at 2-0 with the injuries. They will get healthy eventually. I think Brock Purdy is supposed to miss 3 games. He's missed his first, so 2 more games potentially before he's back. But talk about the importance of having a backup quarterback and why teams continuously don't invest in the backup quarterback position is beyond me, especially in today's NFL where guys are like China dolls because maybe they're never used to getting hit. Maybe it's the fact that they're not callous. They never get hit, so they're not used to taking that punishment. I don't know what the deal is, but it does seem like we lose a lot of quarterbacks.
Well, meanwhile, apparently those reports about the demise of the Detroit Lions were over-exaggerated. Man, they look good. They look good to the point where when it was all said and done, Ben Johnson in his return to Detroit was asked, hey, did Dan Campbell and the Lions run up the score? They put up 50+. And credit to Ben Johnson saying, no, what do you expect them to do? Kick field goals? That's not what they do there. They go for it.
It's fourth down.
Full throttle.
Fourth down. I think Jared Goff had 5 touchdown passes. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 3 touchdown receptions. They ran the ball. They got back into being the balanced offense that they are, the run-pass combination, the play-action stuff. And Jared Goff is one of those guys, and I've said this till I'm blue in the face, and people, always kind of poo-poo it or discredit it. but Jared Goff is a top notch. I've always called him a top between number 10 and number 5. Somewhere in there, he is that good. He is that accurate. He is that fearless in the pocket. And I know he can't run, and I know he can't avoid the rush, and I know he can't do those things. But from the neck up, that dude is amazing, and we should have a little bit more respect on Jared Goff's name when we talk about great quarterbacks in this league, because what he's done here the last 3 or 4 years for Detroit has been absolutely incredible. And there was that question mark. And I think part of it is that's how good Green Bay is. And we saw them dismantle Washington again on Thursday night. That's how good Green Bay is. But I also think there was that kind of learning curve, if you will, new offensive coordinator, quarterback, offense. How do we get it all to mesh? They took strides. It was cool to see Dan Campbell post-game, in the locker room talking about their team and how they can shut up the critics and how they have to go out and prove it. And Detroit looked like they were back in that game, just dismantling Chicago. On the flip side of that, how concerned are you? I'll ask you the question. How concerned are you about Caleb Williams?
I'm not ready to panic yet. You're talking about a new offensive coordinator. You better than anybody. I don't mean to deflect it back to you. I'm just going to say I'm not ready to push the panic button yet. And you know Ben Johnson pretty well, all your years of doing Detroit games. Mm-hmm. I mean, just how complex of an offense is this to pick up? Is it going to take some time? I don't know if I'm ready to bury Caleb Williams after 2 weeks. Now, if we're having this same conversation, by Halloween, month and a half from now, okay, now maybe it's a conversation worth having. I'm not ready to have it yet. You?
19 of 30, 207 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception, took 4 sacks. You couple that with what went on in Minnesota week 1 on Monday night and how that first drive of the game, he was on point, and then after that, he was just woefully inadequate. A lot of off-target throws. I just worry about guys who have always been able to play off schedule and rely on athleticism to get them out of trouble. And here's my big concern, and this was a big concern coming out of USC, is that Caleb Williams consistently made big-time plays in college after the initial play was over. And there were many times that I would watch in the games that I looked at, handful of games, so, smaller sample size. But there were plenty of times I watched him bypass an option to try to create something bigger. And I've told you this about Kyler Murray. I've told you about boring wins. And when you get off schedule because you want to go out and make a big play, more often than not, if you make one big play and it's exciting, and that's like a drug in and of itself. Ultimately, what ends up happening is you'll make 3 or 4 plays that are bad, that hurt your team. And that's what I worry about, that off-schedule nature, that lack of being on time. That's what I talked to Ben. That's what I talked to Ben Johnson about 4 weeks ago. Talked to him about like those things that we're trying to work on to be on schedule, to get the ball out, to get the receiver's hands, to work on our footwork and stuff. Those things break down, and when things break down, you get off track that way. I'm concerned.
But as far as being patient and not getting too panicky about Caleb Williams is a guy like Daniel Jones. A reminder, hey, sometimes with these quarterbacks, especially ones that are accustomed to making plays with their legs, maybe it does take a while to figure out how to play quarterback. And is Daniel Jones maybe the latest example of that? We saw it last year with Sam Darnold. Is Daniel Jones looking like he's going to be this year's top rehab quarterback? He looked great against the Broncos.
He's looked great 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
And a part of that is I've known Shane Steichen for a while, back to his Charger days when he was, I think, the quarterback coach with the Chargers. And how he helped Justin Herbert his rookie year. And so you go back to kind of making things simple, making things easy, calling an offense that's a progression offense and giving your quarterback kind of across the board reads, and I think they've done a great job, and certainly Jones has looked incredible. And what they couldn't get done in New York seems as though through 2 weeks, I know it's a small sample size, but it certainly seems that Shane Steichen's got him going. Now, you tie in the fact they're running the ball, they're controlling line of scrimmage, they're protecting him. They've got the play action pass, the run action stuff, the play pass stuff. They're doing a great job of mixing it up. And I thought they took a Broncos defense that was supposed to be the best defense in football, and I thought they handled them. I thought they handled them in the passing game off their play action, off their boot keep stuff, off their shallow crossing stuff, like getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands early, and they consistently were running the ball first down, getting 4 or 5 yards of carry, making it 2nd and 5, keeping everything open in your menu. There's no play you can't call when you're sitting there on schedule. And I think Daniel Jones has just been incredible.
Speaking of that Broncos-Colts game, I consider myself a pretty well-informed football fan. I think a lot of fans do as well, especially Bronco fans. I got a new term I learned, leverage. Yeah. Leverage. The Broncos looked like they had a win, 60-yard field goal missed, but leverage was called against one of their interior linemen that came over the guard in the center, supposedly pushed himself up off the guard. Flag was thrown, 15 yards, leverage. And Indy gets another kick and wins the football game. I had never heard about leverage as a penalty until now.
Let me just say that nobody came to watch you officiate your ass off. And you could probably call it on every play, because PAT field goal, you're taught, if you're playing guard, you're taught to step, pinch your head in like inside to cut off the inside gap, and almost like you're not firing out, but you're kind of firing down and staying low. So as you jump, if you put your hand on them, could it be considered or called leverage? Yeah. It didn't affect the kick. It had no effect on the team. Now, I'm one that was taught growing up, you never let it come down to one play or one bad call. And the Broncos had ample opportunity to win that game, and they couldn't come up with a play when they needed to come up with a play. So, I'm not going to put it on officiating. I'm not going to whine about a bad call. I'm just not. But that said, and we talked about this on our radio program, if you leave Lucas Oil Field, right, and you're in your car and that penalty is not called, there's not one person saying, I tell you, like they missed it. There was a leverage on that PAT, on that field goal, that 60-yarder. Right. They leveraged. Right. Now, they didn't even get close to blocking it, right. And the guy was wide right and he was short, but there was leverage. There's no question about it, and I'm pissed.
Right.
There's not one person in America, to your point, there's probably not one person in America that knew leverage was the thing.
Right. I mean,
nobody.
Anybody watching that game, like I can see how, as a fan, or you're watching on TV, you're like, that was a pass interference call. How could they not call that pass interference call? Or how could they not call that hold? I could see fans walking out of the stadium or turning off their TVs saying, wow, how did they not call that? But nobody, either in that stadium or watching on TV, goes, they missed the leverage call. I swear, look at 92.
It's the oldest call in the book.
Look
the
at
leverage
92.
Call.
Leverage. We got screwed.
By the way, I don't know who 97 is, but on the Will Lutz field goal that was missed, he crossed the left guard's face and he jumped in the air and he had his hand on the guy's back. Is that leverage?
Right.
It feels like leverage. It feels like that's a call you could call on every single PAT and every single field goal if you wanted to.
And let me be clear here to Colts fans. We are not, I know I'm not, I don't think you are. We're not blaming the Broncos' loss
the Colts played,
on the call.
To me, the Colts played a really damn good football game. And the Broncos, at 21 points in the first half. They scored on their opening possession in the third quarter. They had 28 points.
Right.
You have a quote-unquote defense that's supposed to be elite, and your offense scores 28 points on the road, you should win 100 out of 100 of those games. You couldn't rush the passer. You got one sack on a blitz. Like that. I tip my cap to the Indianapolis Colts. They beat the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos just did not do what they needed to do late in that game. 2nd down and 1 on the 26-yard line, going in to score and to salt it away, and you get stuffed in the backfield for -2, and then Bo Nix throws a pick on the next play. Just an errant throw. Like, those are the things that cost the Broncos the game, not leverage. Leverage had nothing to do with it.
Still, though,
I'm not making excuses.
Still a BS call.
It's a horrible call. But again, I'll give Indy their due. 2-0 right now, unlike the Chiefs who are 0-2. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier in the podcast.
Show me your pits. Where are those Vaseline marks? Probably still have them.
By the way, I did also put a little Vaseline on the back of my jersey about here.
Really?
So yeah. Okay. It's smeared in the pits on the back.
Sure, sometimes it get a little sloppy and it would.
And just in case you try to grab my jersey, you're going to get a handful. That's defensive holding, isn't it? If you grab my jersey, isn't that cheating? Is that cheating?
Yes, Mark, it's cheating.
Quit. Listen, can't see fan. Quit your whining. You guys have had your run. It's been great. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo, Basil. You guys are losing. Hey, listen, for everybody involved in the Stinkin' Truth podcast, we thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Make sure you subscribe and you like. We appreciate you. We'll be back with you later on in the week. I didn't call a game this weekend, so I don't have a leftovers breakdown, but next week I'm in Washington, D.C., the Raiders taking on the Washington Commanders. It's going to be a great game. Raiders play tonight. I'm really excited about watching that because the Raiders I thought they were really good in week 1 in a win over New England. So anyhow, looking forward to that. For everybody involved, thank you so much for making us a part of your day.